was the great, I don't know, the great merchant area of the world. And the problem that the Europeans had is they had nothing that the Easterners wanted. European goods in 1500 were no good. They were heavy woolens, rather badly made. They were iron that the Chinese had invented. They were, you know, they were all a bunch of stuff that the Chinese and the Indians and the Arabs already had, and the Ottomans already had. So there's this remarkable change from 1500 to, say, 1800. By 1800, the Emperor of China gets this enormous load, I don't know, 600 cases of gadgets from the King of England. And he sends back to the King of England saying, "Nah, thank you very much, that's a very nice gift, but we in the central kingdom are not interested in curious objects and inventions." Well, that was true. By 1800 it was true. But before 1500 it wasn't true. China became conservative and technologically non-progressive at the very time that the Europeans went slightly wacko about inventing stuff. So it's invention, it's the free societies of the West, in contrast to the East, although again you got to be careful because there's an Orientalist view of the East, which is, oh, it's all this kowtowing, and it's the centralized Chinese, and there's no freedoms in the East and the South Asia and so forth. And that's easy to exaggerate. Yet still there was a contrast. And out of the contrast came the brief European military superiority. Because along with their inventiveness in cannons and ships, the Europeans were shockingly brutal. The Dutch and the English, the French, especially the Dutch and the English, were notably ruthless in their conquests. In a way that, you know, lots of other cultures found quite offensive. Okay, so there's this brief episode of European superiority. But what it does do, forget about the European superiority. Forget about conquest. Economic success is not about conquest. Conquering people is not how to become rich. It's one of the things I show in the second volume. You don't get rich by stealing. Look, ask yourself, would you do well by stealing from the homeless people in your town? Is that a good way to get rich? To hold them up with your 38? No, it's not a good idea. If you're going to steal from people, I advise you to steal from the rich people, like Madoff did. And steal with a pen, not with a gun, you won't go to jail as long. So this idea that the richness of the West depended on exploiting the South and East is basically nonsense. I don't deny that they exploited the South and East. From the point of view of the South and East, the rise of the West was a big pain in the neck, and it was a nasty episode. But that someone gets killed in a convenience store robbery, that the clerk gets shot by the robber, who gets $38.43 from the cashier, from the clerk, doesn't mean that the murder isn't a gain to the thief. The $38.43 is the gain. So stealing was not how the rich got, how the West got rich. The West got rich with this extraordinary engine of invention. Not primarily investment, as Adam Smith and Marx claimed. That was wrong. It wasn't investment that made the modern world. If it was investment, the Egyptians would have made the modern world. They could invest as much as they wanted to. They just had to enslave people. The Chinese, who were able to do amazing things, the Grand Canal and the Great Wall, they could have industrialized if all it was piling brick on brick. No. It was a sudden burst of creativity. And that came from a change in the rhetorical atmosphere towards the bourgeoisie. So, to express it another way, I'm saying that there was an ideological change in the 17th and 18th century that made for the Industrial Revolution. Volume 5 is called Bourgeois Enemies. All my titles have bourgeois in them, because I want this word to come back into circulation as a good word instead of a bad word. I want to change its valence, as the chemists say. I want it to be valued positively, not negatively. Because bourgeois life, that is, has always been associated with freedom. Contrary to kind of a environmentalist pastoralism, it's in towns that we become free. It's in towns, to speak in Latin, that we become civilized. That's what the very word means. Townized is what it means, what the Latin means. So I want to bring back this word bourgeois. I want people to say, oh yeah, that's great, you're bourgeois. Hey, let's go, bourgeoisie, rah, rah. 1, 2, 3, 4, who do we adore? Bourgeoisie, bourgeoisie. So that's volume 5. And then volume 6 is kind of vague in my mind, but it's all the economic things you heard that were bad about capitalism that are not. It's there that I treat environmentalism in a rather full way, and I treat, I don't know, things like the notion of the reserve army of the unemployed, that you have to have lots of poor people in order for people to be rich, and other errors that I regard as historically and economically implausible. So there you have the 6, and that's the story. The story is that there arose in Europe in the 14th, 15th century, in northern Italy, Barcelona, and Lisbon, a commercial mentality, which you see in the Hanseatic League of the North, that is then concentrated and politicized and ideologized in Holland, the Dutch Republic, 1568 to the 1560s, yeah, 1568 to really to the present. And then the English and the Scots in the 18th century, especially the early 18th century, more or less explicitly imitate the Dutch and become themselves, in the phrase of Blackstone, the great student of English law, a polite and commercial people. A polite and commercial people. Because my claim in this first book, which you really must read, it's a wonderful book, it makes a wonderful Christmas present. Solve your Christmas shopping early. Buy 10 copies of the thing. It'll be excellent. Your mom will just dote on it. She'll just love it. The argument is not only that virtue is necessary for capitalism to work well, and that's something that a lot of my economist colleagues said long before I did, but also the other way around, that markets and innovation create a polite and commercial people. That virtues, not just, I don't know, saving a lot or, you know, accumulating a lot. That's not very much of a virtue. That's thrift, which is a very minor virtue. But courage and justice, hope, faith, temperance, and love and prudence, all 7 of the virtues